Hey everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we are embarking on a truly bizarre, slightly hilarious, and surprisingly profound psychological deep dive. We're going to look at an experiment that completely challenges everything we think we know about human endurance. It's called the Electric Patience Challenge. And trust me, by the end of this explainer, you might just rethink every single time you've ever blamed yourself for a lack of personal discipline.
Okay, let's dive into this incredibly absurd premise. Imagine a test of human limits. You're probably picturing, a marathon, or maybe some intense logic puzzle. But no, the researchers here opted for something way weirder. They took a brand new, clean 9-volt battery, paired it with an old, rusty, incredibly heavy cast iron manhole cover, weighing anywhere from 40 to 90 kilograms, and combined it with the sheer, unyielding force of human stubbornness. It sounds exactly like the setup to a strange joke, but it's actually a meticulously designed crucible for testing the human mind.
So here's the deal. The methodology here is as beautifully simple as it is, frankly, diabolical. The rules are absolutely rigid. Step 1. The participant has to bear the oppressive physical weight and uncomfortable texture of that heavy manhole cover, either standing up or kneeling. Step 2. They must place their bare tongue directly onto the positive terminal of the 9-volt battery. And Step 3, the ultimate command, do not remove your tongue for exactly 3 minutes. You have to endure the metallic taste and that sharp electrical zing without pulling away.
Now, to truly measure willpower, the experimenters set up strict metrics to make this as agonizing as possible. Participants have to endure the continuous microshocks and vibrations right on their tongue. But here's the kicker. There is no countdown clock. None. They are flying completely blind. Furthermore, they have to actively inhibit their own natural reflexes. They literally cannot wipe their tongue or swallow their saliva. And this is vital, because if the tongue gets dry, the electrical stimulation actually feels sharper. Conversely, if saliva pools in the mouth, the electrical current distributes differently, creating these completely unpredictable, random zaps of pain. They are constantly fighting their own physiological urges.
Human beings are wonderfully diverse, and this experiment brings out some amazing participant archetypes. You've got the quietly curious folks who think it's no big deal until about 30 seconds in when their faces just completely freeze. You have the avoidant types who try to quit before it even really starts, complaining their tongue feels weird. You have the patient observers who try to clinically monitor their own pain until it totally overwhelms them. And then you have this stark contrast with the competitive ones, the people who hold out purely out of pride in front of everyone else, literally shedding tears just to protect their ego.
But honestly, my absolute favorite archetype has to be the overconfident participant. Come on, we all know someone exactly like this, right? They step right up to the manhole cover, chest puffed out, boldly declaring themselves the ultimate master of willpower. They're absolutely certain that mind over matter is going to carry them through this trivial battery test. And then, without fail, roughly 10 seconds after their tongue hits the metal, they let out a yelp or a scream. It is a hilarious, immediate failure that perfectly shows just how poorly we estimate our own physical endurance. So how do those full 180 seconds actually play out? Well, they escalate into absolute chaos, divided into distinct psychological and physical phases. It starts with this deceptive, easy phase, slips right into micro-regret, plunges deep into the tunnel of endurance, hits peak agony, and for the rare few who make it, ends in the desperate final resistance. Let's break down exactly what happens to the human body and mind in each of these torturous little intervals. In the first 30 seconds, there's this pervasive, hilarious sense of false security. Most people lightly touch the battery and give a look that just screams, "Wait, is this it?" Some even violate the rules by rubbing their tongue around to explore the current. But the funniest reaction recorded by the researchers happens right here. Some participants are so relaxed and amused that they actually start tapping their tongue against the battery, clicking out "I love you" in Morse code. They think the whole experiment is just a lighthearted joke.
But then, we hit the 30 to 60-second mark, and the reality of the situation sets in. Saliva starts to pool, and they have to suppress that overwhelming instinctual urge to swallow. Their tongues begin to involuntarily tremble and their lips twitch. This is where the brain gets incredibly confused by the mixing of intense physical tension and these weird electrical signals. Participants frequently just burst into this uncontrollable nervous cuckoo laughter. They aren't happy at all. They're experiencing intense physiological confusion, laughing out loud without even knowing why. Moving into the 60 to 90-second block, the laughter stops completely. We enter the tunnel of endurance, and things get very serious. Sweat starts beating up on their foreheads. Fists are tightly clenched. Some close their eyes like they're in deep meditation, while others just stare blankly up at the ceiling. And the panic really sets in because they realize they cannot easily remove their trapped tongues. You literally start hearing participants crying loudly, through their noses. Genuine tears streaming down their faces because the physical strain is just becoming unbearable.
Okay, things get pretty dark between 90 and 120 seconds. This is the peak agony simulation. Right around here, the experimenter coldly announces there is still 1 minute left, and the participants' faces just turn to stone. The physical toll is immense by this point. Some actually bite their own lips until they bleed, trying to distract themselves from the electrical pain, which, by the way, immediately disqualifies them. Others lose muscle control entirely, their tongues slipping off the battery and snapping back like a frog catching a fly, desperately trying to reattach before they fail.
For those few surviving into the final minute, it is sheer misery. Tongues turn pale white, eyes are completely glazed over in a 1,000-yard stare, and the muttering under their breath is constant. But the absolute peak of despair happens just 5 seconds before the finish line. At exactly 175 seconds, one participant, practically begging for the pain to logically end, asks, "Is this battery dead now?" And the experimenter, with clinical, chilling detachment, simply replies, "It's still alive." It is a soul-crushing punchline right at the very end of their endurance. Which brings us to the core question of our entire analysis today. When the 3 minutes are finally up, we see a clear division between those who failed and those who succeeded. And the natural assumption, the way we've all been taught to view the world, is that the survivors simply have ironclad discipline. We assume they dug deep, conquered their minds, and exhibited superior willpower compared to the weak-willed quitters, right? But is that actually what happened?
Section 1. The Willpower Illusion. Biology over free will. Let's look at the actual data to see why personal discipline actually had very little to do with the outcome here.
To really understand this, we need to examine two specific case studies from the experiment. Minsu, who successfully endured the full 3 minutes and looked like an absolute champion of mental toughness, and Jihei, who failed early and seemed to lack discipline. By juxtaposing these two individuals side by side, the entire illusion of willpower completely shatters against the harsh reality of biological determinism. First, let's consider Minsu's so-called willpower. Minsu didn't use sheer grit. He basically won the genetic lottery for this specific test. First off, he was born with only 1/3 of the normal electrical receptors on his tongue. He literally couldn't feel the shock as much as a normal person. Second, he suffers from chronic dry mouth, which means no chaotic saliva zaps. Third, he actually had minor nerve damage from burning his tongue on hot soup as a kid. And finally, he used a super clever technique, slightly tilting the battery to reduce the contact area. Minsu didn't outwill the battery, he outlucked it. On the flip side, we have Jihei's supposed failure. Now, Jihei didn't lack mental strength. She was fighting a biological war she couldn't possibly win. You see, Jihei is a genetic super taster. She possesses a staggering 17 million active taste buds, making her tongue hypersensitive to every single microvolt of electricity and every metallic molecule. On top of that, she drinks hot coffee daily, meaning her tongue was already slightly inflamed and highly reactive. For Jihei, the pain was exponentially magnified. It was a completely unfair fight from the very first second. This context is absolutely everything. Just think about it. If the researchers had changed just one single variable, say if they had made this a taste endurance test, like seeing who could detect the most nuanced bitter flavors over 3 minutes, rather than who could withstand an electrical shock, Jihei, with her millions of super-sensitive taste buds, would have been the undisputed champion. And Minsu, with his damaged, insensitive tongue, would have failed instantly. Success here is entirely situational.
So here's the crucial takeaway, this new definition we really must embrace. The illusion of willpower is the false belief that success in enduring hardship comes purely from the absolute strength of your free will. In reality, what we call willpower is overwhelmingly just the luck of possessing advantageous physical, genetic, and environmental conditions that happen to align perfectly with the specific type of pain or challenge you're currently facing.
The researchers provided an incredibly profound metaphor that summarizes this perfectly. They stated, willpower is like a thin sugar coating over the dense dough of genetics, past experience, and current physiological state. That thin sugar coating, that's your conscious effort. It exists, and hey, it's sweet. But it is entirely held up and dictated by the massive, heavy dough of your biology and your history. You cannot simply will the dough to change its ingredients.
Now, a very quick and necessary detour. If you are somehow feeling inspired by this bizarre setup to try it at home, please heed the real-world safety warnings. While a 9-volt battery is generally safe, a 90-kilogram manhole cover will absolutely crush your toes if dropped. Naturally, anyone with epilepsy, heart disease, or open sores in their mouth should avoid this entirely. And finally, if you're playing the experimenter, you absolutely must be prepared to physically rescue panicking participants who get their tongue stuck, even if you are struggling to hold back your own laughter.
Well, we have covered a ton of ground today in this explainer, from laughing through the nose to the genetic realities of super tasters. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. The next time you find yourself struggling with a habit, a difficult task, or an endurance challenge, and you immediately start beating yourself up for having weak willpower, pause just for a second. Ask yourself, are you truly lacking mental strength? Or, in this specific situation, are you simply missing the right biological dough? Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.